So the next step in this journey through the forest of presbyopia is to talk about what we call the plus 150 test. Now, in previous lecture iterations, we used to call it the plus 150 tolerance test. And then I realized that that's not a good word, tolerance. It sounds like, well, you tolerate it. It's because it's not actually a test of tolerance. It's a test of acceptance. And that sounds much better, and it's much more positive. So now, from now on, forevermore, it will be called the plus 150 acceptance test. And the way this test evolved was just because of the equipment that was sitting in front of me and what I was trying to do. And we were talking just earlier at lunch about the fact that in the UK, nobody used phoropters, or very few people use phoropters. They use boxes with lots of lenses in them, and how you can't do this very well with loose lenses. You'll see why. Anyway, I've always used a phoropter. I trained in the US. So the only thing I had to change from the US to here was that the US, for some reason, they like to use plus cylinder. And I think minus cylinder makes much more sense. So the first thing that we do when the patient sits down and we start examining them, we've taken their history, you know, all their history, drug history, everything, is dominance testing. And in our protocol, you have to do 4 tests. You do the whole test, you do the pointing test, you do the rifle test, so you get the rifle out, you handed it to them, and you say, no, not at me. Those are the PRESBYOND practices in Texas. But here in the UK, we give them one of these supermarket plastic cameras. We just say, here, pretend you're taking a picture of me, and we look at what eye they go to. And then we say, do you shoot? And they go, no. And if they say, well, you know, pretend you've got a rifle and pretend you're shooting. And if they go like that, their left eye. Okay, so we write down all of these on our table. So whole, pointing, camera, rifle, straight down the right. This is a right eye dominant patient. But whole, pointing, camera, not sure, and rifle, this is equivocal. And a lot of people, about 15% of patients have ambiguous dominance. It's fine. There are tests around this. So the majority of patients will prefer their dominant eye for the distance preference, and this would require some extra testing to determine which eye we will be using for distance. So the dominance tests are done. Now you go to the manifest refraction, and Glenn went through that with you, and we talked about this at lunch. We had some questions from an optometrist who put something into question that I'm not sure I was right, but let's see. She's going to look it up. And then, you know, you get to that binocular balance test, right? You finish the manifest refraction. You put up the R's on both sides, do the binocular balance, and then it's the plus 150 acceptance test. So that's how the sequence works. So, and the whole point of this, and remember I talked about this, you know, early on, that there's this whole thing about misdirection so that people can't see what's going on, right? And this is what you're doing. You put up the plus R's on both sides. And you say, which eye is better? Look at the top line, not the brightness or color, but which eye has the edges of the letters better, the right eye or the left, the right or the left, okay? What about now, right or left, right or left? Now they're the same. Okay. Now, I grab the reading card, check which eye is dominant. As I go in front of the patient, I reach over and switch off the R on the dominant eye. Like a magic trick. And I do it like this. I go, here, look here. totally imperceptible. And I say, how far up can you read here? And I hold the phoropter with this hand, and I know that my elbow here is at 33 centimeters. Yours might be here or here. Depends on who you are. And I say, and they read the top. And you say, good. How far down can you see there? And they read 2016. And you say, okay. Look a few lines up where the OHVCK is. Do you see that, OHVCK? Yeah, that's the driving standard, so that's easy. Right. And here, where my finger is, that's small newsprint, N8. Okay, so the small newsprint is easy. Back to the driving standard, back to the newsprint, back to the driving standard, back to the newsprint, and the whole time that we're switching here, back and forth like that, very easy, the whole time, this eye was all blurry. And I cover their dominant eye. As I say that, this eye was all blurry. 97% of humans, planet Earth, go like this. Really? Or, huh? It's all blurry. I go, yes. And you didn't realize it. No. That's crazy. Look, when I uncover your right eye, your brain is going to switch this left eye off. Watch. Oh my God. Look, it's there, but you can't see it. It's there, but you can't see it. See, it's like magic, yeah? See, it's there, but you can't see it. It's there, but you can't see it. No, so it really comes from that kind of training as a kid. So, and they're like, wow. I say, yeah, it's incredible. And if I cover here, you can't read. No, it's completely blurry. I know. But watch. I uncover here, and you can't tell this eye is blurred. Look. See? Can't even tell. They go, no. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. And I grab the ophthalmoscope, so I stop the questions, and I say, just look here, just straight here. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking at the corneal reflex, the Hirschberg test that we do on kids. And I go, and then I mark where I see the Hirschberg on my chart. And so I've stopped them from getting too far into this because they've already had a whole session with the optometrist on a different day where all of this has been explained and all of it's gone over again. So what I'm doing there is I'm just giving them that reassurance that it's the same as last time. We don't have to talk about it, okay? Some patients get a little, you know, I'm not sure I want this blending. I think I'd just rather go for distance and use reading glasses. I can tell you what we do in those situations, but it's unusual because by the time they get to the second visit, which is the surgeon consultation, they understand it. And some patients are very worried about adapting, and there's so many reasons for explaining to them why we're going to do it that way, even though they're worried. Anyway, this blended vision acceptance test is about a minute or two at the most, okay? Now, if they don't pass is when it's a little bit longer, and we have some examples of that. So actually, I'm sure you were expecting this, there is a standard operating procedure flowchart to do this. I'll just read it for you. So you block the patient's view of the chart and have the R lens in the non-dominant eye. Reveal the distance chart. How does that look? Nothing strange? No? No ghosting? Looks pretty good? Excellent. How far up can you see here? Can you see the smallest print? Yeah? Yeah? Good. And now look over at the chart, right? And now look here. And now look there. The whole time, this eye was all blurry. Oh my God, I didn't realize that. So did they notice it? No. Okay? Did they notice it? Yes. Now, at that point, their ad is 150, right? So is the current ad plus 0.75? No, it's plus 150. Then decrease the ad by a quarter and go back to the testing, and then and they still are aware of it, decrease it by another quarter. Do they still notice it? Yes. Decrease it by another quarter. Do they still notice it? Yes. Is the current at plus 150? Yes, it is now, because I've just gone 3 times down a quarter. So it is. So what do I do now? I go up here and I check that manifest refraction again, because it could be that I've over quartered, by a quarter, I've over plus the dominant eye. So that's why they're noticing it. So I take a little quarter out and they go, oh yeah, that's really good. And I put the plus 150 in and they're like, yeah, it looks clear. Okay, so you might have over plussed by a quarter on the dominant eye. Sometimes it's under plussed, so they're, you know, it's like a 58-year-old and they're minus a quarter, and they're giving them a little bit of an asthenopia because they're trying to accommodate that quarter, and you take that away and suddenly the cross blur goes away as well. Cross blur occurs when the dominant eye cannot hold on to the ledge in the Grand Canyon. That's how I see it. In other words, if someone's getting cross blur, it's because both eyes are trying to get a hold of something. Whereas if you climbed up and you put your hand on the ledge at the top of the canyon and you got a good grip, you can let go of the other hand. It's when you're not quite on the ledge that the other hand comes, it's like, try to help, try to help, try to help. And it recruits the other eye. That's why post-op, as you'll see in the management post-op of unhappy patients, it's all about testing quarters up and down, sometimes halves, sometimes hyperopia is missed that was there. I've had, you know, situations where the patient is said to be on target, they come to me for a second, you know, after the optom, and I find a half diopter more plus, and then the answer is enhance the half diopter. Bob's your uncle, they're happy again. So again, it's about repetition and taking time. Disaccommodation takes time, even in presbyopic patients. So a 54-year-old plus 4, you really have to take your time while you're fogging them, because the disaccommodation is slow. So someone like that, for example, if they walk in without glasses, I know I'm in here for another 20 extra minutes. Because they're walking around without glasses, they're plus 4. Oh, shit. But if they're wearing the glasses, I sit them down and they go, should I take my glasses? I say, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. And I put everything in the foretog, get everything ready. So you're gonna take your glasses off, and I'm immediately gonna put this on. I don't want you zooming. Okay, put them right there. Okay, right, go. Look straight here. Okay, so that saves me about 10 minutes of disaccommodation time. So, recheck the refraction, go back. Did it work this time? Yes. Is the current ad, still noticing cross blur? Yes. Okay, second option, now get the trial frames out. Sometimes the optical quality of a phoropter isn't very good, or the PD is causing a little bit of prism because it's not exactly right, or they've got a, let's say they've got one eye above the other, you know, people that have asymmetric skulls, and then you actually get a prism effect because they're looking through the bottom of this lens and the top of that lens. There's all kinds of reasons. So the trial frame lenses are larger, and you might go, okay, finally they have no cross blur. Then you remove the R lens from the non-dominant eye and put up the R lens in the dominant eye. So what you're doing is this, click. In one movement, you just click, and that reverses the R to the other side. And then you document what their cross blur is with that setting, and then reset the R lenses to the original position, and then record the acuities. Now, can the patient read N5? Yes. Are they emetropic? Then you can perform a trial frame simulation so they can walk around the clinic. These are the emetropic patients. We take a little bit of extra time with the emetropes to make sure, and then it's done. Can they read N5? No. Well, then increase the ad by a quarter in the non-dominant eye and check that they don't have cross blur. If they don't have cross blur, reverse the R's, note the cross blur, reset the R's, and write down the acuities. So that's the chart, okay? Right. So look at some examples. So so we developed this nomenclature of cross blur. We call it cross blur. Why? Because this eye is clear and this eye is blur, and with both eyes together, they feel blur, so it's crossed blur. That's why we called it cross blur. And we also did a nomenclature that was in tune with not alarming patients. So the worst is moderate. So if we see moderate, that's huge cross blur. But we call it moderate. We don't want to alarm anybody who's looking at the chart. Then we say mild, that's not good. Then we say trace is not what we want, and min is a little bit and it's fine, and none is just none. So it's a very steep curve, the way the nomenclature we use it, and why we didn't use none, minimum, moderate, high, and severe. Why didn't we use those words? Because you don't want those words in a medical record. Period. So what you do is you encode it into, language that can't be misinterpreted by a, those people. Anyway, so looks fine, trace, a little bit unusual, mild, that looks odd. So you'll see patients, these few patients, these three patients that come up, where 3 out of 10 out of 100, that where you put up the 150, you take away the thing, you put up the card, the reading, and then you go like this, and they say, immediately they say, that looks really weird. Immediately. And that's when you start titrating back the ad. So they'll say, okay, it's weird, I get it. So let's call it a weirdness factor of 10. If I do this, how weird is this? And they go, sorry, can you go back? And I go, no, it's one way. How weird is this? And they go, 9. I go, okay. How weird is this? They go, oh, that's better. Okay, well, how many out of 10? Like a 6. Okay, what about this? Oh, that looks fine. Does it look weird at all? No. That's none. So by grading, and then you write down in the table, you write down all of these options. You keep writing them down on the table so that you've got documentation of their tolerance of the different amounts of ad. Okay? Titrating them down to minimum. Minimum is where you do surgery. So the rare cases, like one I'm going to show you later, accepts a quarter difference, which is like, dude, come on, let's be reasonable here. But there are people like that. And okay, so the blended vision acceptance test. So we've been through that. Sorry, I've just gone through the whole thing, actually. So what I'm going to do now is this is going to go through it with our former fellow here, pretending. And the smallest you can see there?
It's HCDRO again. Mm-hmm. And I think it finishes KD something SN, maybe?
Yeah, good. And how far up can you see here? Am I covering it?
The printing of this size is used only for special applications,
Great.
including
Perfect.
toning.
And then how far down are you seeing there?
HCDRO.
Great. Okay, so a few lines up from that, where the line is, that's the 2020 line. Mm-hmm. So that's easy, right? Mm-hmm. And then this here is newsprint. So that's easy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You're looking at the 2020.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the newsprint.
Yes.
Back to the 2020.
Yes.
Back to the newsprint. Nice and easy, switching very, very easily back and forth like that.
Yes, yeah.
And the whole time that you're switching like that back and forth, the whole time, this eye was all blurry.
Yep, that's very blurry.
But you didn't realize it.
No.
And when I uncover your right eye, your brain is going to switch your left eye off. Watch.
Yeah, that's super clear now.
So you see, it's blurred, but you can't tell when both eyes are open.
Yeah, that's very, very clear.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, okay, first of all, he's English, so not a lot of emotion. And second of all, he didn't go to acting school. So, a bit flat, I would say. I think we should do it next. Actually, we could re-record it with Glenn doing it on me. And it'll be like, holy shit, I can't notice that thing at all. Okay, so I do have Texan patients that come over, and that's what we get. In fact, that Texan guy, I literally said to him, do you shoot? And he goes, well, yeah, I got an open carry license. I'm like, open carry license? He goes, yeah, I can go and open carry into a supermarket. I go, well, why do you have to carry a gun around? He goes, well, to protect myself. I got to protect myself and my family. I'm like, oh, okay. So like, he's like, no. I said, well, show me how you shoot. He goes, well, like in what situation? I'm like, well, I don't know. You're in the supermarket and, you know, some situation, you know, crops up. Someone's holding up the cashier or something. He goes, well, if the guy's over there and I'm over here, it's like this. But if he's over there, it's like this. And he was literally doing this on the chair. I was trying not to crack up. It was so funny. But it's natural, it's normal, right, in Texas? These guys are from Texas. Okay, anyway, so here's some very poorly recorded, but during COVID, so people had masks, so I figured that's anonymized, examples of the surprise moment.
Okay, so you see, look up to the OHVCK.
Yeah.
Yeah? And that's the driving standard.
Okay.
Okay. So where my finger is newsprint.
Okay.
So that's easy.
Yeah, all right.
So back to the driving standard.
Yep.
Back to the newsprint.
Yep.
Back to the driving standard. Back to the newsprint. And the whole time that you're switching back and forth like that. Very, very easy.
Yeah.
The whole time, this sounds all blurry.
Oh, really?
But you didn't even
Oh,
realize.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
When
my
I
gosh.
uncover your right eye, your brain is going to switch the left eye off.
Okay.
Watch.
That's
There it is.
how fun reading works. Wow.
But you can't see it. Now that I've told you, can you tell the left eye is blurred without closing your eyes?
Absolutely not, no.
No. And when you look at the large letters at the top, is there any ghosting whatsoever around them?
No.
Okay, that's an example of what you'll have to look forward to.
Well, this, you realize that?
Yeah, well, do you know what, when I came to consultation, you did that?
At the previous consultation, they did that.
Wow.
But you didn't realize it.
I didn't realise at the time, I only realised it had done if you hadn't done it before with the...
So this guy wasn't surprised because he remembers the previous consultation. Amazingly, most people don't.
You didn't realize it? No. Because when I uncover your right eye, your brain is going to switch the left eye off. Watch. Yeah? Oh. Just switches it off. Okay? Yep, so there it is. But you can't see it. Okay?
Welcome to England. In Brazil, it'll be like there's some samba music comes on and everyone's like getting up and dancing. Okay, so anyway, so that's the point, right? I went through this, this whole algorithm already. Now, again, just to iterate, once you finish this tolerance test the right way around with the dominant eye for distance, we always document what they see with the reverse dominance. Because we want to know if this is someone who has no preference for dominance. That's one piece of information. But also, there are people who have less cross blur when you set their dominant eye for near. Don't ask me why, but there are some. So it is worth switching it. There are some other tests that we do in that regard, confirming dominance, and this is one of them. This is a plano presbyope, straight down the left side, with left-handed as well. And this is a test that I use to confirm. Watch this.
So, the first question is, you told me that it's sharper with one or with two.
Sharp with 2.
Sharper with 2, yeah? Sharper with the right eye for distance. But
Sharper with the right eye for distance. You see that? He's picked the R on this side. Now you have to make sure that it's not because this eye is overplussed, right? But anyway.
now, rather than what's sharper, can you tell one of the eyes is fogged like this? Can you tell?
I wouldn't know that, but the left eye feels as though it's working harder than the right.
Okay. And if I go to 2 there, can you tell now, or
No, it feels.
doesn't feel like one eye's different from the other? But here it feels a little strange,
Yes.
and that feels normal.
Yes.
Yeah. Left.
So, he's left eye dominant. He said it looks sharper when the ad was in his dominant eye. But then I switched the question, not what's sharper, does it feel like one eye is blurred? And he said, not really, just that it feels like one eye, that my left eye is working harder. So the language can be a little bit bizarre. And then you say, okay, that feeling that you have there, how does it feel here? And he says, that feels normal. Doesn't feel like one eye is working harder. No. Well, this guy got treated with a left eye for distance, even though he chose, when it was just, off the bat, he chose the ad in the right eye, because it could be because he had 20/20 plus 2 vision in his left eye, and 20/16 minus 2 in the right. It could be that he was sharper, he actually was sharper, but only because, one eye is better than the other, and maybe the lens changes are slightly different in one eye than the other. So, and again, what you're testing here is for the sensory perception of an anisometropia. That's what we're looking for. How well do they sense whether one eye is blurred or whether there's something weird about the situation? Okay?
So
Now, there's this other test, which I call the time to suppression test. And I think I hope I have a video of this. Yeah, time to suppression. So there's complete ambiguity as to which eye they prefer. And particularly this happens if there's one eye that's has slightly lower acuity than the other, and that happens to be the dominant eye, like I just said. 20/16 and 20/20 minus 2. And 20/16 is in the non-dominant eye. So they keep on asking for that eye, just because it's sharper, right? So this is the time to suppression test.
I'm going to cover this eye,
Very good.
and when I uncover it, your brain switches it off.
Yeah.
And I want you to kind of clock how quickly your brain switches it off, right? Just perceive how quickly it shuts it off. We'll do the same thing on this side. So starting here,
Cover it, move it.
and we go back. Which eye gets switched off quicker?
Wow, I'm going to say this is worse.
This is worse?
So,
So basically here,
because it's so much better vision, what you give me when I switch over.
okay, let me see if I can bias
One is
it.
great compared to
What about now? For right versus left? Similar.
that's better.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's do the same thing. So,
Hang on, they both crisp.
oh, sorry. There you go.
Okay.
So that's that one. Okay, instant. Okay, that's good. And what about here?
So say
Okay, so R plano, microsecond, microseconds, microseconds. R0, faster, faster. Time to suppression. the time it takes for their brain to switch off the eye that's blurred. And if you do that from side to side, it will help you distinguish, because the side that can suppress faster will be the one that is preferable for near. Makes sense, right? Okay. I'm getting into esoteric examples here that you will very rarely need to use, but I'm just saying, when we've done 10,000 PRESBYOND patients, you come across these people. So let's look at some examples. 54-year-old minus 10, mostly left eye dominant, camera to the right. Many cameras are, designed for the right hand to push the button, so who knows. However, blend division tolerance testing was add on the right, okay, and had minimum but mild when it was reversed the other way, okay? The vision was 20/20 plus 2 N4, and the near vision was N4 and N8 through the distance eye, even though he's 54, and there was minimum cross blur. Now here, it's repeated with the anisometropia released, and you can see that there's slightly less good distance vision. There is good near, but there's less near through the plano eye. Okay? So mild cross blur. So given this scenario, the non-dominant eye is preferred, and we do the non-dominant eye. Okay? So non-accepting patient, you do the titration, right? Remember the titration, a quarter less, out of 10, out of 8, 7, 2, 1. Okay. So here's an example of someone who had that. 42-year-old low myope. Had to titrate down to minus 0.75. In other words, mild cross blur, so straight down the right-hand side. Mild cross blur at 150, which is a lot. Minus 0.25 is trace, minus 1 trace, 0.75 minimum. So 0.75 is okay. Switch it the other way around, mild trace, trace. 20/25 vision, so neural subtraction because of that, because each eye is 20/20. So this case, because of the minimum and the good vision up near, the patient now has excellent vision in that near eye, the left eye, which has the extra add, and slightly less in the other eye because the patient's 42 and is already slightly presbyopic. So better vision up close in the non-dominant eye with 0.75 add. And doesn't prefer reversed, accepted, and so is treated with a 0.75 in the non-dominant eye. And I'm going to go a little bit later to explain to you that we call that the "it's lucky you came for surgery now" protocol. It's lucky you came for surgery now protocol. I'll explain later. So here's an example of the titration.
Slightly different color, but which I see as the edges better of the letters at the top, the right eye or the left.
Similar.
Right. They're similar.
Similar.
Okay. And how far? So how far down can you see there?
H, C, D, R, O.
Great. And how far up can you read here?
Printing of this size is used only for special.
That's very easy. Yeah. Okay. When you're looking at the larger letters at the top, is there do they look nice and clear, or do they look
A little bit strange.
how, in what way?
There's a little bit of ghosting.
Okay. Look at that ghosting at the top there. Is it any different if I do that?
That's a little better, yes.
Is it gone?
Not quite.
What if I do that?
That's better still, but there's a little bit still.
Okay. How far up can you see there?
Printing the top one, printing of this
Yeah.
size is used only in special
Okay.
applications.
And look at the top there. There's still any ghosting around there?
A little bit, but almost nothing.
Almost nothing? So is it the same here?
I think that's gone now.
Gone completely.
Yes.
Okay.
And how far up can you see here?
I can still see the top one.
You can still see the
Printing of this size is used only in special applications.
Great. Excellent.
Okay, so it went from minimum to none between -1 and -0.75, But of course, this is raw focus, defocus testing, and blended vision has spherical aberration. So this is actually a harsh test compared to what they're going to get. Remember, you're getting a plus 150 acceptance, but the distance is going to be as if it was plus 0.75. So again, that's their safety margin, is understanding that, and they'll say, so is this what I'm going to see after the surgery? And of course, the first thing you say is, well, I don't know, because I'm not a fortune teller, but this is what we're aiming for. And of course, it's worse than what we're aiming for. But you don't say that, because it's overpromise and underdeliver.
So slightly different.
No, I'm sorry, the other way around. Okay, so, shit. Sorry, that's diffractive lenses. Okay. Okay, so here's it's really lucky that you came now protocol. So here it goes. So there's that patient who's 43, -3, tolerates, 0.75, and they're 43. And they're N5 in their distance eye, fully corrected for distance, and N4 with the 75 add. And you say, great, this is excellent. It's really great that you came in for surgery now, not later. He goes, really, why? Should I wait? I said, no. It's great that you came in for surgery now, because you see, with this testing, you could see perfectly well the tiny print with only half the power that I would have given you if you'd been 5 years from now. But because you only take half the power, we'll do that now. And the great thing is that over those next 5, 6, 7 years, where it will not be sufficient anymore because now you're older, because now you've walked around already with carrying the 10 kilos, you'll come back in 4, 5, 6, 7 years' time, and then I can give you the second 10 kilos. If I gave you the 20 kilos now, you'd fall over. So it's good that you came in now, because we can actually give you independence from glasses now and maintain that independence then. If you came in then, I wouldn't have been able to give you as much near off the bat. You'd have had to wait a few years to get the rest of the near, and that's why it's lucky you came in now. Make sense? 100%? And guess what? As I'm going to show you in a minute, it's the myopes who tend to need that. I'll show you in a minute. So, another example. Non-accepting, 53-year-old, emmetrope, like plus 0.75, left eye dominant but right-handed. In England, that was a ruler on the back of the hand when I was at school, if you wanted to be left-handed, but I am left-handed. Always going against the grain, yeah? Yeah, that's right. Okay, so this is the wavefront refraction, this is the manifest refraction, right? Wavefront refraction, manifest refraction at the first visit by the optom. This is the optom's cross-blur testing, so not looking too great. Left eye dominant with the add of 150, moderate, 0.75, still mild, trace, not even min, with 0.5 difference. And forget about reverse. So this is not looking good. Still trace cross-blur. And the plus 150 test, has this been, did Glenn put this into the refraction lecture? So he did, I heard him say it. You put the plus 150 in and get the acuity that they get through that plus 150. If it's not, the best it can be is 2060. If it's more than that, you haven't added enough plus. But it's between 2060 and 2100. That's a very quick way of knowing whether someone is underplussed. You put the 150 in and they see 2030, you're automatically click 2 in and take the R off. And you'll get more plus. So, this is the situation that I was faced with, and I manifested the patient and saw that this was uneven, so I put more quarter into the left eye to even out the plus 150 balance. And I was able to add an extra half diopter in that eye, which now made the wavefront match on both sides. And once I found that extra, suddenly minimum cross blur and none at -1. So this is an example of why you do 2 visits. It's not that my optom doesn't know how to refract. She does. She's excellent. In fact, they're all excellent. Glenn showed you the paper. We've published the repeatability, the inter-observer repeatability, and it's almost inhuman how accurate we are between measurements. But the human eye is different, and disaccommodation is not easy. So one thing that she may have missed is the fact that she had a 20/80 in the left eye and 20/100 in the right eye in the +150 balance. Had she clicked on that, she might have added a quarter to the left eye, and then she might have added another quarter to make them balanced, and then she would have found the same that I did. But you can't go back in time. You don't know what happened. So anyway, that's the situation. That's why it's 2 visits. I've had people implement PRESBYOND, and I've got one chain that implemented it in another country, 13 clinics, wildly successful, growing 20% year on year, gangbusters for their business. And another branch of the same company in a different country, where they refused, the medical director said, we don't need 2 visits. They wanted to save the money. And they never got PRESBYOND to take off. And so, you know, to me it's like, nah, it doesn't work. It's like, are you following the exact protocol? Not exactly. Well, then you can't say it didn't work. Sorry. You know, you got to do, you know, you can't fly a 747 the way you want to fly a 747. There's an instruction booklet, and if you don't fly it like that, then you don't get to fly. It's as simple as that. So medicine, of course, has all this stretchy, permissive stuff where it's my way or my style. But it's better to stick to the protocol and then see whether something works or not. The trial frame business we talked about, especially when it comes to a patient who doesn't even accept a half diopter between the eyes. And of course, these are very rare examples. But here's an example of someone who had cross blur at minus 0.75. So it's like, Christ, you know, even at 0.75, still had trace. Minimum at 0.5. Now, starting with a 0.5 mini blend allows the brain to begin the adaptation process. Often what happens is these patients do accept more anisometropia if they end up with more. So for example, I'll show you an example where we aimed for that, plano and minus 0.5, but what happened was they ended up with plano and minus 1, but it had no cross blur. Why? Because the minus 1 eye sees 20/25 on the chart, because there's tons of depth of field, and we're not testing that with depth of field in the 4-opter. If the 4-opter had what was a adaptive optics 4-opter, we could put the spherical aberration in as well. So explaining to the patients that they can always have an enhancement once they adapt to what we're giving them now, and once they become more presbyopic, we can adjust that as well. That's part of the thing. So here's an example of a 55-year-old psychiatrist and artist, and he's below hyperope, he's +1, and in testing him, his problem, his reason for presentation was that he struggled with his intermediate vision at art galleries. He would go to a painting and he couldn't see the plaque, and he had to put this, his reading glasses were too strong, he had to have another pair of glasses just to read the plaque. He was very frustrated. So the problem with him is that he only tolerated a 0.5 difference. And he got a trace, and that was with trace at 0.5. I was willing to do that because I know that setting a +1 to minus 0.5, if he lands on 0.5, his vision is going to be 20/20 in that eye, at distance. So I knew it was going to be okay. But mini blend, because the intermediate would not be great for art gazing at 4 to 6 feet unless, absolutely does not mind readers, discussed enhancement to plano if absolutely necessary, and up titration if with more age tolerates more anisotropia. Long discussion, no presbyopic solution is perfect, although 80% of the patients notice the anisotropia, none of the time, and therefore it's almost perfect for them. The result, the rest use glasses on occasions when they want to have binocular vision, distance or near. Compromise of laser blended vision is less than the compromise of needing reading glasses most of the time. LBV instantly reversible without visual quality are compromised by spectacles, if, for example, driving at night. So long discussion, lots of documentation of what we said. And he ended up super happy, like ecstatic, because he ended up seeing everything he needed to, and he could even read N5, because he ended up slightly overcorrected in that eye. Okay, so 71-year-old low hyperope. I know the pressure's going up in here because everyone will say, what? He has cataract. No, he doesn't have cataract. He has 20/20 +1 vision and good contrast, so he doesn't have cataract. It's a right eye dominant patient, and in this case, with the 150 gets N5 and the 175 gets better near. The distance vision is still 20/20. So no cross blur. So in this patient, because of no accommodation and because basically uses phone and iPad, not computer, understands that for computer may need an adjustment glasses, but happy to reduce their intermediate vision in exchange for having independence from glasses at the other distances. So here's an example. Someone asked somebody about this earlier, but here's an example where you will titrate in terms of who this patient is and what they need. She's older, okay, a little bit more add. Very important with the emetropic patients, okay? It is worth doing a trial frame simulation at the clinic with emetropic patients, because in the clinic, the biggest distance is usually 4 or 5 meters to the wall. So it's better to give them the glasses and have them walk down the corridor or look out the window and just see if it really works, okay? And absolutely, in these patients, it is critical that all of the hyperopia is found. If you miss a quarter, that can completely ruin the party. And if you miss a half, you're definitely, you know, at risk of making an unhappy patient. You've really got to be very good at refraction. So if you're starting PRESBYOND, I wouldn't start with emetropes. I would start with low hyperopes. Your ideal first patients are the +1 to +2, 50 to 56-year-old presbyopic, without a cataract. The emetropic patients are the only ones where we will sometimes, if they're very motivated, we will do a contact lens trial. The only class of patient. Because you don't want to do contact lens trials for PRESBYOND, because contact lens trials are failed for non-optical reasons like discomfort, dry eye, protein deposition on the lens, and all kinds of other reasons in people who never wore contact lenses before. So there's no point, and also monovision is only tolerated by about 50% of people. So if you use contact lens trials to decide who can have PRESBYOND, you're cutting out 47% of the people who would have been okay with PRESBYOND, but they're not okay with monovision. So we do not do contact lens trials. Why don't we do them? Because of the irritation, there's no spherical aberration, and why? Oh, because we do 2 visits. Yeah, we do 2 visits. So the 2 visits usually takes care of any questions that weren't answered on the first visit. And remember, the contact lenses, unless you're ordering torics, now you're into a whole other thing. They don't correct the sill. So don't forget to document these patients very, very careful so that you know exactly what the pre-op testing was, and therefore later on, if they're not happy, you can go back to that and refer to it to know what to do next. There is never a patient that is left unhappy. They may be left with less near vision than they were hoping for, but not unhappy. Unhappy is cross blur, bothering, headache, stress. Never, because this is LASIK and you're not losing contrast and you're not losing best spectacle corrected vision. It's just a question of optics. So, when we have a plano patient, we have a way of explaining to them how the distance might be different. Because what we don't like saying to patients is, it'll be a compromise to your distance vision. So a lot of people say, you'll be fine, but it'll be a little compromise to your distance vision. Don't say that to the patients. It is not true. There is no compromise to the distance vision. This is how you explain it. You have 100% vision in the right and the left eye. With both eyes together, actually your brain adds everything and you actually have 140% vision. You have better vision with both eyes than just with one eye. Now, the thing about that, though, is that you have no near vision. So what we're going to do is we're going to steal from Peter to pay Paul, and we're going to take a little bit out of that left eye and put that left eye at 60% at distance. Now, actually, when you add up your 60 eye with your 100 eye, you'll actually get 110 at distance. Still going to help for distance a little bit more. It's just that you're going to have all your near vision. And yes, it's a little less than both eyes for distance added, but it's still more than one eye for distance. So it's not monovision. And you've got the benefit of the reading vision. Plus, if you ever want to have 140%, you just put a pair of glasses on and you still have 140%. You don't lose anything. Got it? Okay. Right, so the way that we write this on our websites and our communication to patients is to say, and I think this is officially now ensconced into Zeiss's written protocol because I wrote it, the distance optimized eye is set for excellent distance and intermediate vision with some near, while the near optimized eye is excellent for near, good at intermediate, and reasonable for distance. This is not monovision. This is not one eye for distance, one eye for near. This is both eyes for distance and both eyes for near. Just one eye sees a bit better at distance and one eye sees a bit better at near. But they're both seeing together all the time. That's speech. Memorize. Spew. Verbatim. That's what you say to a patient when you're explaining. Someone asked me, how do you set their expectations? You need to explain this is not monovision. Oh, my friend had that and she really hated it. It's like, yeah, well, that's monovision. This is not monovision. This is binocular vision. Okay? Borrowing from the distance.
Larger letters.
I'll skip that. I'll skip that. I want to show you this because this is our analysis of the anisotromia acceptance. And what we learned was that the myopes up to the age of 50 tend to not accept a full 150. After the age of 50, they do tend to accept a full 150. The hyperopes, oh, sorry. Many of these myopic patients who are less than 50 will only accept up to 125 or less. And what we've learned is that even if you put someone or target someone a -0.5, they could actually end up -1, but they're still happy. Why? Because the -0.5 distance vision in 4-opter is less than the -1 vision after PRESBYOND. There's depth of field in there. Rule of thumb, if you set a low myope to -0.75 in the non-dominant eye, that eye will see 20/20 -2 with a -0.75 in it. So in general, you could say that with people who are -0.75 in the non-dominant eye after PRESBYOND, they are completely binocular at distance. Both eyes are 20/20. Just one eye is 20/20 -2. So the chances they're not going to tolerate that is virtually zero. Okay, so that's a rule of thumb to understand. What's interesting is that hyperopes and myopes, they tend to all accept, no matter what age they are, the full +150. And that's published in one of our papers. So that's interesting. It's the myopes in their 40s that tend to be the ones that you have to give less add to with the "it's lucky you came in now for surgery" protocol. Examples. So most patients have a clear dominance for the add in the non-dominant, but some prefer the non-dominant eye. So here's an example of this, because you know sometimes that's why you always test it the other way around. And especially if a patient's starting to seem like they're difficult, then try everything. Try reverse, try titrating reverse, try titrating the right way around, titrate reverse, check the quarters on the distance eye because it might be a quarter up or a quarter down. You know, do X, Y, and Z, left, right, and center. You know, go in every direction to try and see what, you know, where is the error? Is the error in the refraction, or is in the error on the dominance preference? The use of reverse dominance, this is 5,600 patients, and you can see that the dominant eye was used in 65%. Okay, and used as a distance eye, 4% in the non-dominant eye. So it does happen, because 4% is not 0. So you have to be aware of it. You should always do that reverse testing, okay? Here's an example of a -11 who had a little bit of amblyopia, okay? Straight down the middle right eye dominant, preferred the ad in the non-dominant eye. And that's because the non-dominant eye had 20/20 and the dominant eye had 20/25. It was a myopic degeneration. But it was, this patient preferred to have the ad in the dominant eye because of that, and had minimum cross blur. So preferred the non-dominant eye, okay? So rare case, vital to check all the simulations. Very careful counseling required in case they, you know, their hobby is shooting. But still, you know, some patients prefer this, so you do have to check for it. There's lots of little examples like that that you could go through and you will learn as you go along. But the main test that I showed you and the main message here, and I've said this earlier already today, is that the beautiful thing about the treatment of presbyopia in the absence of cataract with PRESBYOND is that other than a perfect refraction, which you should be doing anyway, you add another minute or two of chair time, and that's it. For the vast majority of patients, that's all you add. And then the counseling, well, everybody needs counseling before surgery, and so there's nothing additional. And you basically qualify more than 95% of the patients that walk through the door who are over the age of 45 for PRESBYOND. And because PRESBYOND is not LASIK, PRESBYOND is the same as, is in the class of premium procedures. It's a premium procedure. It's not just LASIK. So it costs like a clear lens exchange with multifocals or more if you're in Romania, because it's better vision and you maintain your accommodation. Thank you very much.